We've talked about collecting the data, so how do we compile the data? In other words, how is public health information compiled to measure the health of a population? Measurements that summarize the health of populations are called population health status measures. And in the 1900s, two very popular health status measures that were used were infant mortality rates and life expectancy. So for infant mortality rate, we wanted to look at how many children died between 0 and 1 years of age, and then also we looked at an under 5 years of age mortality rate. It's a newer measure, but it's also still important. It's looking at health care and nutrition and access to the things that children need to grow healthy and strong. Life expectancy, or the probability of dying at each age of life in a particular year, is also used to look at the health of a population. But life expectancy tells us only part of what we want to know. It reflects the impact of dying, but not the impact of disability. So the World Health Organization now uses a measure known as Health Adjusted Life Expectancy, or HALE, to summarize the health of populations. It's a measurement that starts with life expectancy, and then it incorporates measures of the quality of health, things like mobility and cognition and self-care activities of daily living, pain, mood, and sensory organ function. So if you think about it, do you want to live to be 100 years old, but the last 25 years of your life you're not able to move around, you're in constant pain, you have Alzheimer's? These kinds of things are looked at when we look at health-adjusted life expectancies. A second index that has been developed by the World Health Organization is the Disability Adjusted Life Year, or DALY. This was developed and it's being used to allow for a comparison and changes based on categories of disease and conditions. So let's look at some tables that give us examples of each of these. Here is a table that has life expectancy and health adjusted life expectancy, or HALE, for a range of large countries. In this column you see the life expectancy, and over to the far right you see the health adjusted life expectancy, or HALE, based on the country where you reside. So the HALE column is going to take into consideration people's ability to walk without assistance in their mental functioning, their ability to participate in self-care and the activities of daily living, including dressing and eating, if they're in pain, if they have alterations in mood that limits their function, and if they have impairment in vision or hearing that impairs their function. So these are indexes that are used to look at the health of a population. This table presents DALYs lost by disease categories and total of all categories per 100,000 in a population. And so remember that DALYs are designed to examine the impact that specific diseases and risk factors have on a population, as well as provide an overall measure of population health status. So they allow us comparisons between countries or within countries over time based not on overall summary numbers like life expectancy, but also on specific diseases and risk factors. Looking at this table, we see countries along the far left, and then across the top there are categories in terms of DALYs lost due to communicable diseases, maternal, neonatal, followed by a column for non-communicable diseases and injuries, and then total DALYs lost. And you can see that there's a difference in categories based on the country, with Nigeria having far more losses in DALYs due to infectious diseases than countries like the United States, where it's with non-communicable diseases.